Welcome to the Tiger Rag Audibles podcast. This is Jeff Palermo, News and Sports Director of Louisiana Radio Network, along with the editor of Tiger Rag Magazine and TigerRag.com, Todd Horne. On this edition of the Tiger Rag Audibles podcast, we're going to talk some basketball. Successful weekend for both the Lady Tigers and Coach Matt McMahon's team. And how about the performance by the gymnastics team on Friday night? A program record high as far as a score goes of 198-475. So we'll talk about that and much more here on the Tiger Rag Audibles podcast.
The East Baton Rouge Library says this is the year to invest in you. The library brings value by connecting you to information, resources, materials, technology, and experiences. We make a positive difference in your life. All you need is your library card. Stop by one of our 14 locations, open 7 days a week, or find us online at ebrpl.com.
Back on the Tiger Rag Audibles podcast, Jeff Palermo, along with Tiger Rag editor Todd Horne. And the Lady Tigers broke out of a two-game mini losing streak and defeated Florida 106-66. The 106 points, the most ever scored by LSU in an SEC game, as everyone was clicking against a not-so-good Florida team. Michaela Williams, the freshman, broke out of her shooting slump on Sunday, Todd. 9 of 12 from the field, 3 of 5 from three-point territory. But probably the most encouraging stat line has to go with Haley Van Lith. 21 points, a season high for her. 7 rebounds. She only had 1 assist, 3 turnovers, but still a couple of steals. Played like the Haley Van Lith that you're hoping to get the rest of the way.
And I think the secret to that was that last tier Poe played a significant set of minutes at point guard, putting Haley Van Lith back at the number 2, which she's most accustomed to, and she was in her element. And as long as she can pull that trigger, that's why she didn't have that many assists. She was concentrating on pulling that trigger.
Well, we knew there was going to be an adjustment, right? They lose to Mississippi State last Monday, and then they don't play again until Sunday. So, and the options are limited, right? I mean, Janae Kent is not ready to log a lot of minutes yet, and they just really don't have any other options at the guard position. So, what was the adjustment that Kim Mulkey was going to do? Well, get last tier Poa out there as the point guard and keep Haley Van Lith on the floor. Ended up, now granted, it's a blowout, so Kim Mulkey could be very liberal with her minutes here, and it wasn't going to cost them at all. But Haley Van Lith ends up playing nearly 28 minutes. Last tier Poa plays 26 minutes, and that combination worked. And Poa scored a season high for her with 9 points in SEC play, and she had the 4 assists. She had a steal, and it was just it worked at least for this game. I don't know when they go up against better competition, Todd, if it will continue to work, but against a 11-9 Florida team, it worked on Sunday.
Yeah, and I think the most important thing is is the fact that Poa got some quality minutes at point guard with Van Lith at number 2. And they were able to also work the ball into the low post, whether that was Angel Reese or Morrow.
Yeah.
And granted, like you said, competition with Florida not being that good, but it's still the repetition and the minutes in a game-like atmosphere. And I think it was good. I think it's going to have a lasting impact on Van Lith too, moving forward. I think she needed it to boost her confidence.
Well, and Kim Mulkey has told her to quit listening to us and reading the headlines about her not performing well, or if you go on the message board, she's the problem because she's not a real point guard. She's got to get that out of her head. She's got to put the rabbit ears down and just listen to what her Hall of Fame coach is telling her.
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting to, little off tangent here, but listening to the post-game press conference, Williams talked mainly about the confidence it gave Poa and how they encouraged Poa to shoot, because they say we see her do it all the time in practice against top-notch defenders. Of course, it's LSU defenders in practice, and she does well, and this is the first game that she's actually stepped up and pulled the trigger herself. And I think that again, like I said, I don't want to sound too cliche-ish, but I think it was a necessary environment for that team to try and create more chemistry. And I do think we're going to see Van Lith at number 2, regardless of what we're being told.
And obviously the focus is on the 106 points and what Van Lith did and what Poa did. But how about holding Florida to just 35% shooting?
Yeah, and Florida had the leading scorer. I don't remember her name.
Elia Matheru. She ended up getting 20 points.
Well, the leading scorer in the Southeastern Conference, and they held her to like 4 field goals total or something to that effect. So the emphasis during the bye week was on defense, and they played much better defense down low and out on the outside perimeter. So
Alberta Rindal.
Yeah,
she was held to 7 points, 3 of 10 from the field, 1 of 6 from 3-point territory. So they got Vanderbilt Thursday. Vanderbilt's an improved team, and then they play Monday against A&M. I believe it's Monday, and then they get another week off.
Yeah, isn't that weird? Is that a schedule quirk or what?
Yeah. So they got, but then after that, it's with this team with limited options. That's when they're going to really be put to test here down the closing stretch.
Yeah, and Kim Mulkey's teams traditionally, at least at LSU, and I've looked back at some of her years at Baylor. This is the time of year when the team comes together, and we talked about it the other night when we were discussing it. They had lost 2 games in Mulkey's first year about this time in January, and then pieced together a long streak. And I think you're going to see that again. I think that this is crucial to them coming together. And I think that's what's happening right now.
Now, on the flip side, the men's basketball team, much tougher stretch coming up here. Starting Wednesday against Tennessee. I'm already jumping to 2025.
Right.
But let's talk about what happened Saturday against Arkansas. We said on the radio show it was a must-win and 11 a.m. tip-off, and they jumped all over Arkansas early. How about Will Baker?
Will Baker and Mike Williams set the tone for that game.
Well, how about Trey Hannibal, though?
Trey Hannibal. And what about Jalen Cook?
Well,
Jalen Cook comes off the bench.
There was the lineup change. You knew there was going to be something that would happen.
Right.
Men had a break, too. They lost Saturday to Alabama. They got crushed there. Give them a week off. Matt McMahon says, let's go with Hannibal. Let's get that energy on the court right away and have a focused Jalen Cook coming off the bench. And it worked probably better than he could have ever envisioned.
You see my fingers? You see how far apart? I'm sorry, this isn't on video.
So they're like millimeters apart.
They're like millimeters apart. That's how close this team is right now. They could have been, should have been 5-1 going into that game.
Yeah.
They should have beaten Texas A&M in the second game here in Baton Rouge. They were robbed, in my opinion, even though they had to mount a furious comeback, 9-0 run late in Athens at Georgia. But I thought they were robbed by a bad call when Hunter Dean was blocking out, and that guy Theo or whatever his name is climbed all over his back.
Right.
They got the rebound. Then Jordan Wright's Hail Mary basically from the corner goes halfway down the bucket and pops out. That's not where they got robbed. They got robbed on the bad call. Anyway, they could have gone into Alabama.
Alabama, they would have been 5-1. They're going to lose there.
Right.
Well, they should have been 5-2.
Okay, so that's my point.
They should be 5 in your mind. They should have been 5-2 going in that game.
They should have been 5-1 going into Alabama, and then you're right. They would have lost that game the way it turned out.
Yeah.
However, I think if they were 5-1 going into Alabama, they may not have been blown out in the second half the way they were. And if you take that 10, maybe 12-minute stretch in the second half against Alabama out of the equation, revising history here, but it was literally Alabama just went nuts and bonkers.
Yeah.
Okay, and hit 10 of 11 shots inside the first 10 seconds over that 12-minute span. In other words, it was a flurry of activity, and they were just hot from outside.
Right.
And they just basically whittled LSU down to nothing during that period. Aside from that, it was a close game.
Yeah.
LSU trailed by 6 at halftime, And except for that, it would have been close going in. Now, I'm not trying to be a sunshine guy here, but LSU's going to go on the road against Tennessee. This Florida game they executed every single facet of the game exceptionally well. They have good players, okay? They're competitive. They can compete with anybody. Tennessee has not been playing that great a basketball, although they went into Kentucky and played probably their best game of the year. But they're going to be coming off that game. LSU's got, 9 games remaining? Do a quick count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 games remaining. So they're 4-4. No, that can't be right.
They're 4-4 right now. And, they'll have 10 games, right, because there's 18
10
games.
SEC games, right,
Yeah.
right, okay. So I'm predicting that they go 8-2 the rest of the way.
I don't think
in
they're
the SEC. I can tell you which ones they're going to win and which ones they're going to lose. They're going to lose at Tennessee. It's going to be a good effort. Tennessee, they actually match up well against Tennessee. And you talk about Will Baker. If Will Baker stays hot from the outside,
I think that was just one game.
That's what he did all his career.
He's not
prior to this.
No, he's not a 24 point. 20 he scored 23 points.
Okay, but I'm talking about the outside shot.
Well, the fact that he took some more threes.
Yeah,
and the spacing on the floor allowed. I mean, there was, but I don't know if you can expect him to drop 20 on you every night.
I'm not expecting him to drop 20. I'm expecting him to continue to take the outside shot and then continue to open that up. I'm expecting them to continue to play positive ball where it comes to assists versus turnovers, which they had taken a severe drop in over the last 3 or 4 games leading into this game, corrected by Hannibal's play, by Cook's play at point guard. So they're gonna lose close to Tennessee. They're gonna beat Alabama at 11 a.m. Central on next Saturday in Baton Rouge. They're gonna beat Florida at Florida. Now here's the game. South Carolina. Who would have thought that South Carolina, who was predicted to finish dead last in the Southeastern Conference, would be as good as they are? All right, but you know how they're good? They're slowing the game down.
Yeah.
LSU's not trying to play that way. LSU's trying to play fast. But LSU is an extremely physical, tough team, and I think they match up exceptionally well against South Carolina. And South Carolina, if they try to slow the game down against LSU, I think it actually rolls in LSU's hands, whether that makes sense or not. So I'm going to predict LSU is going to beat South Carolina at South Carolina. Then Kentucky at 8 p.m. on ESPN on February 21st in the PMAC.
Yep.
Tigers.
Okay.
And they're going to lose at Mississippi State.
Mississippi State's at home.
Mississippi State's at Mississippi.
Mississippi State's home.
Well,
Now you got them going 9-1 the rest of the way now?
no, I'm still going to have to. Mississippi State's.
I'm looking at the schedule right here. Unless
Okay,
this is wrong off the LSU app.
Yeah, I'm sure it's right.
So they play. Is that right? They play 3 straight home games. That's pretty.
See, that's what I'm saying. I don't think that's right. But,
Okay.
But anyway, regardless, we can't fact check it right now. But Mississippi State. This is all based on matchups, by the way, not necessarily where it's home. Home and away comes in a little bit. But I'm still going to say they're going to lose to Mississippi State. They're going to beat Georgia. They're going to beat Vanderbilt. They're going to beat Arkansas. They're going to beat Missouri, and they're going into the SEC tournament 12-6.
I see a more. I think so. I'm thinking more 10-8ish. You know, losing to Tennessee, the Alabama, Florida, South Carolina.
That's the key to the season, right there.
You could say that. I could see them beating Alabama, but splitting against Florida and South Carolina.
Okay.
So I got them. There's 2 of the losses. Kentucky, Mississippi State. There's a split there. And then they're not going to run the table the rest of the way. Georgia, Vandy, Arkansas, Missouri. They'll trip up against somebody.
Well, let me tell you, Vanderbilt.
I know Vanderbilt's bad.
They're better than Georgia.
Well, I know Missouri's bad.
LSU's better than Georgia. Vanderbilt and Missouri are bad, and Arkansas is terrible.
I just don't think this is a 12-win SEC team.
Okay, well, if it was a popular thing for me to say, I wouldn't have said it.
Yeah, I know. Right? Yeah.
So
I do agree. There'll be a winning record in conference play is within reach.
I think don't you think when you really look at the schedule and you look at how the team's playing, that they are going to have.
They just had a 3-game losing streak. And granted, I understand 2 of them were close.
It's one game at a time, man.
One game at a time, but
anybody can beat anybody in the Southeastern Conference.
I need to see more from Jalen Cook. I want to see more 20-point games like that. I know we're not going to get that out of Will Baker, but could he give me that? Could Jalen Cook give you, whether it's coming off the bench or not? And I like Trey Hannibal's start. I'm a big Trey Hannibal guy. I love the energy he brings.
Let me ask you a question, all right? And I don't mean to interrupt you, but if they beat Tennessee, who they match up well against, all right, and they're coming off of a huge win at Rupp Arena, if they beat them, does your opinion change?
That would be a huge win. Would
you
win.
Just answer the question?
So my opinion, how would it change? I
don't know. Would your prediction, your prognostication for the rest of the year?
I just don't think this is a 12-win SEC team.
Let me ask you a question.
They turned the ball over a ton. I don't think that's going to change.
That's what I'm saying. Part of my prediction is that Jalen Cook and Trey Hannibal, as well as Mike Williams, when he's handling, because he handles the ball a lot, that they've cured and continue to cure or curate their assist-to-turnover ratio.
I'm not sold on it just yet after one game.
Let me ask you a question. All right, if they beat Tennessee and then they turn around and beat league-leading Alabama in the Assembly Center in the PMAC on that Saturday, then does your opinion change?
Well, that's a great yes.
Okay.
And I don't think that's happening.
Okay, but just remember I asked you. All right?
Okay. Could I'll be what a coach would say. I don't speak in hypotheticals here.
Okay. Well, you know what Matt McMahon would say? He's not looking past Tennessee.
All right. For sure. For sure.
That's what he would say.
Yep.
The key lies with, I agree with you, Jalen Cook has scored in double figures every game since he's come back. To me, he took a step in the right direction as far as directing that offense. I think like Matt said, Coach McMahon said, it doesn't matter that he came off the bench. What matters is that he played empowering the rest of the team, and that's what he had done when he first started. And this team has reached another level. Will Baker does not have to score 20 points a game moving forward in order for this team to be successful. What he has to do is continue to not be afraid to shoot the three-pointer when he's got it open on the outside. And that was what LSU did really well against Arkansas. And they totally befuddled Arkansas. And don't forget, Arkansas was coming in thinking they had turned their season around.
I know. I was reading a lot of Arkansas articles saying this is where it starts for them. This because they have been traditionally a slow starting team in league play, and Eric Musselman, the belief was this is where they go on a roll.
And they had just come off of scoring 91 points, I believe it was, against Missouri, even though Missouri's not good on the road. But before that, they were beating Kentucky in Arkansas most of the game and lost a very close one. So they thought they had turned the season around and they were moving forward, and they got completely curb stomped by LSU.
Now it's impressive performance. This is what you're supposed to do in an 11 a.m. game when you're coming off a week bye and you're at home. You take it away. You take it away from the visiting team right away.
Right.
And it's exactly. And I believe Arkansas was on the road on Wednesday, right? So they made the.
Yeah, Arkansas had to make a quick turnaround.
Because they were at Missouri,
right,
and then they came to Baton Rouge. Right. So they, I don't want to say jet lag, but that does take a little bit out of you. You're on a plane, you're back, all that, and then the 11 a.m. start. And I think LSU came ready to, both teams, that's the thing, the men and women came prepared to play, and they should be. It would be very concerning if both of them or if one of them laid an egg this past weekend.
Yeah, it would have been. It was must win for both of them.
Right.
And they both. I think they might have both set the tone for the rest of their season on Saturday and Sunday, respectively. But what about Friday night?
Spectacular performance by Jay Clark's team after a wobbly performance against Missouri the week before. This was another one of those meets, you could say. We were just talking about for the men and women. They had to perform well, and in this meet against Arkansas, this was a meet that I think they had to, after a shaky performance against Missouri. Jay Clark was not happy with how his team performed in Columbia, and they come back in front of obviously a packed Maravich Center, and they put up a program record score high of 198.475.
It's also the highest score in NCAA gymnastics this season.
Wow, very impressive.
And the Tigers are up to number 3 in this morning's poll.
There you go. Just an impressive group of performers. Haley Bryant, Aaliyah Finnegan, Kaya Johnson. For the years that LSU has had, LSU's been knocking on the door here of potentially winning a national championship, and it'll still be very tough because Oklahoma continues to really just dominate the sport. But they have 3 extremely, I'd say 4, because Connor McClain is going to be on the U.S. Olympic team. Mm-hmm. Between Finnegan, who will also be competing in the Olympics for the Philippines, Haley Bryant, Kaya Johnson, and Connor McClain, to have 4 of those type of gymnasts on one team. Depending on how it goes, and they get into the national championship round, they can beat Oklahoma if those 4 are on top of their game.
And what you didn't mention Olivia Dunn.
I watched
her floor exercise like 12 times. So.
It was a great performance. It was her first performance on the floor this year. She is someone that has battled injuries during her time at LSU. But the thing I'll give, actually it was her second. I've seen her perform on floor before.
Yeah.
But what I give credit to Olivia Dunn is, she can just sit there. Granted, being a gymnast does help promote herself, right? The fact that she's a gymnast, that's part of her
allure. Attraction to the commercial sponsors.
Yes,
but she could be a model.
She could just be a model tomorrow and make 6-7 figures.
Well, she's already doing that.
Yeah, and gymnastics could be okay. I'm done with this because she's been doing it for a long time. She's battled the injuries. From what I understand, a lot of her injuries are because of a growth spurt, and for gymnasts, she's a taller gymnast, so it's a little bit harder on her body, and so for her to just continue to stick with it because she doesn't. I don't want to say she doesn't. She obviously loves gymnastics, or else she wouldn't be doing it. But for her, despite all the money, she loves the sport so much she just wants to continue to compete. I think that says a lot about her.
2 things that come to my mind whenever you're talking about that. Number one, this is an extremely talented and deep LSU gymnastics roster. And the amount of time and commitment it takes for Olivia Dunn to participate on this team. Yeah, that's a huge amount of commitment. That's a huge amount of time. It's a huge amount of energy and effort. So she must love it in order to do it.
Yeah.
And the other thing that comes to mind is that she could be a more relevant participant in more events on another less talented team.
For sure.
But she seems to be all in there. I give her credit. And by the way, all joking aside, that floor exercise was really good on Friday night.
And for those that have been concerned, when NIL came about, this is just going to destroy teams because you're going to have an athlete that's going to make more than the others and everybody else is going to be jealous of it. Well, here's a situation where it hasn't.
Right.
Because by all accounts from Jay Clark and from what you hear from the other girls on the team, and I guess full disclosure here, my wife's a former LSU gymnast, so they're alumni. We kind of, every now and then we get a little bit of behind the scenes peek of what's going on. And there is no animosity towards her whatsoever. And it's the team has embraced her, and she, let's face it, she gets a lot of publicity, and some of it's great, a lot of it is negative, and it has not divided this team. As much as it's almost created a circus atmosphere, it does not seem like it's distracting this team whatsoever.
I just can't get over the amount of fans that they draw every single night.
Well, what I have always said, it is your best out of all the LSU athletic events. And I've been to most. I haven't been to tennis. I haven't been to, but I've been to beach volleyball, obviously football, basketball, softball, baseball, gymnastics. I don't think I've done volleyball, but I've turned on a meet or match and I've watched it. I would, out of your bang for your buck, there is not a better event to attend as an LSU fan, especially if you have kids, because there's action going all the time. There's music going all the time. These girls are, especially if you have little girls, these are girls that you want your little girl to look up to. So it is just an absolute, and this has been, during the later years of D.D. Bro's time, this was starting to really to develop. And then when Jay Clark came here from Georgia, that's when this thing really took off.
So when you look at the schedule for LSU Gymnastics, are they headed towards the Final Four again this year?
Well,
now, obviously at third in the country right now. With that performance, you would think they're headed in that direction. But from a discerning gymnastics,
they're going to be. They're going to be in a. It's all how they're going to perform in a regionals, and then obviously now it's broken up now where it's more of a. It's the regional, and then there's like an Elite Eight, and then you get down to the Final Four. So it is a little bit different, but schedules. It'll have an interesting meet against Florida at the end of February. That's probably that'll probably be a big one. And the SEC championships are here in New Orleans, so an opportunity to win an SEC championship before Oklahoma gets in this conference might be the last one they win. Oklahoma, they competed against Oklahoma earlier this year when they had that meet out in Utah, and it's just, what are they doing there? Where softball and women's gymnastics is so dominant.
I can't answer that question. I don't have an answer to that question.
But what are they doing?
But
how is their softball team? I understand that's where the national champion, the Women's College World Series is in the state of Oklahoma. I understand that. But what have they done?
They've been doing it year in and year out in both sports.
But they are so, they're just so much better than everybody else.
Well,
the gymnastics program is there too.
To LSU's credit, though, in that meet where they were in, they did finish second.
They did finish second, and it looked like, as they started out on beam, if I'm correct, in that meet, it looked like they're going to finish fourth out of the four teams. Well, and they picked themselves up and they finished second.
Beam was a problem for them in several events this year, but they seem to have corrected that.
Yeah, they 49,625 on Friday. That was their highest scoring. Actually, no, floor was their highest scoring event, but beam was their second highest.
Yeah, and Jeff, one thing, we've got to go, but explain how the scoring from meet to meet matters, because it's not relative to your competition, it's relative to your overall performance in the judges' eyes.
Right, yeah. When you get ranked, it's not because they beat Arkansas, who was another top 10 team, and there's a pollster out there saying, okay, well, then the LSU needs – it's all based – I think the first 5 or 6 meets, it just basically goes by your highest score, and then once you have, I think, probably 5 meets in the books, then it goes to your average score over all those competitions.
So when you say that LSU's gymnastics team this morning is ranked number 3 following this weekend's action, that means they've got the 3rd best performance cumulative in the country.
Yeah, best average out of everyone else. So
cool.
Yeah, it's impressive. And so it's what it means is with basketball, and we got baseball starting here shortly. Obviously, softball starts this weekend. It's going to be fun to watch, to see how Kim Mulkey's able to keep what they did on Sunday going. Same with Matt McMahon on Saturday. And Jay Clark's squad looks like it's primed for a showdown with Oklahoma and whoever else might be in there for the national championship.
Yeah, we don't have that much time to get into it, but Griffin Herring on the LSU baseball team was lights out pitching on
I think
Sunday.
he is the wild card. Maybe wild card is a weird way of putting it, but there's all this talk about the transfers and Luke Holman and Thatcher Hurd.
Well, Nate Yeske told us the other night that Griffin Herring is the Swiss Army knife,
right.
that he can do it all.
He can, I think he can have a very, very good season because he was so key for them a year ago, in postseason play. And there's just builds up that momentum.
It's your time to move things forward. U.S. Army Reserve.
Well, that does it for the Tiger Rag Audibles podcast. Want to thank everyone involved here. We got Jake, we got Todd, and myself, Jeff Palermo. We'll be back with you later this week with another edition of the Tiger Rag Audibles podcast.